Taxes are the only certainty. Will 20% of people of society? Yes, I have made it on my own in this world. Will not take care of time around a 2-year-old. I'm gonna stop the old nation and do my own thing, and I will be king. I'm gonna stop the old nation with the self-preservation. I'm gonna stop the old nation with the self-preservation. Well, let me talk a bit about the weather. You must admit it's not very clever. Don't get me wrong, it's not an anti-British song. Well, there is nowhere I would rather be wrong. I'm gonna stop the old nation and do my own thing, and I will be king. I'm gonna stop the old nation with the self-preservation. I'm gonna stop the old nation with the self-preservation. There are just a few things that I would like to say about the UK and how I think it has gone astray. Don't get me wrong, it ain't all bad. I love the crazy fads, like England always buggering up, but you know we're gonna win the World Cup. I'm gonna stop the old nation with the self-preservation. I'm gonna stop the old nation with the self-preservation.
Keep the red flag flying here.
And hello, everyone. How lovely to see you yet again. Paul, is this number 62?
It is.
Ah, gracious me. Don't they come around? 62. Just a message to Kat Cray. You've always been polite, and your contribution has always been absolutely welcome. I love it when you're on the show. I'm so depressed. I've been listening to Leonard Cohen. Everybody knows the fight is fixed. The poor get poor, the rich get rich. I think we're going to deal with it in a moment. Everybody knows the boat is leaking. Everybody knows the captain lied. Everybody knows the plague is coming. Everybody knows it's coming fast, and nobody seems to be able to do anything about it. Oh, I'm so down. So on a very quiet note, let's introduce the team, and we'll take your moments of the week. Laura, undecided.
Did you
about
want your jingle,
moment
John? That might cheer you up.
Oh.
Or you can sing it if you want, but we'll do.
No. I won't be the first person who was depressed after listening to Leonard Cohen. Laura, moment of the week.
Yeah, I did have a couple to choose from, but you've just swayed me there, John. Instead of choosing the depressing option, I'm going to go for the positive one. And that was the People's Assembly March against the Tories at the weekend that Social Think Tank went to. I was there with Samantha and the Women's Banner Group and loads of people we knew. And it was just massive. It was so good. Thousands and thousands of people there marching against austerity, against the cuts, against the PCSC, whatever it's called, bill, like against the racism and everything that comes with Tories. And it was just lovely to see so many different groups all coming together for a common goal. And yeah, it was just really enthusiastic and gave us a bit of spirit back, I think.
One of my memories came up 2 years ago. Mary Dixon and Mike Dixon, me and Barbara were at a Jeremy Corbyn rally in Newcastle. I think you were there as well. And don't they give you hope, these things? Isn't it marvellous?
I mean, is it? Yes, it's marvellous to find hope again. It really is, until it gets ripped away, but so cruelly. But yeah, we'll hang on to this one for a bit longer till the next thing.
Thank you for trying to cheer me up. Sam, moment of the week.
So about 3 or 4 hours ago, Durham County Council released a press release saying that the school that I've been campaigning to keep open for the last 3 years is probably going to close. Yay! So it's just another long list of everything that's gone wrong with this. Unfortunately, the press release was released half an hour before the town councillors could be briefed, so that became a very unnecessarily heated meeting. I'm glad that, you know, members of the public are incensed about it. They should be. And I hope that I can get some of them to come down to the cabinet meeting to explain how they feel.
I remember in 1978, they proposed that they were going to close Shildon Comprehensive. They had a meeting in Shildon. The people of Shildon nearly ripped their throat out. And they went back to Durham, and they very quickly proposed that they were going to close Greenfield School instead.
Yes. And here we are with exactly the same choice.
It's always one
on.
against the other. It's never. So anyway, all the best with that campaign.
Thank you.
Stuart.
After conference, you know, and all the palaver with that. On the last day, we had Keir's speech, and just as he opened his mouth, I'd found out that we'd lost a colleague, and I was quite upset about that because I knew what he meant to the community. You know, I understood what losing him will mean to lots of people, not just his family, but, you know, a whole community has lost a really big part. So on the train home, I'm sat there, I'm quite miserable. And the train manager comes along. I get my tickets out, and I've got my little Labour delegate pass and my bus pass there. He asks, how was the speech? And I said, oh, well, it wasn't great for me. Not because of the content, because of the sad news. At which point he said, you're from Durham. He told me that he knew Laura Pidcock. He actually friends with her. And the last time that he saw her was travelling back to Westminster when she had to pack up a flat, essentially, and leave town after losing an election. And he told me what she was telling him, that spoke about her dad, you know, what he was reading, what he was thinking. And he asked the question, where do we go now? What do we do? And Laura had said, just one brick, one more brick. You just keep going after one more brick, one at a time. And that man in that moment, you know, really lifted me. He did more for me than I think he'll ever understand, because he put me right back where I needed to be, you know, and he looked after me that entire journey back. He really did. And, you know, it was better than first class, because, you know, we were traveling in working class solidarity. It was one of the most amazing moments of my life.
You're a wonderful man, Stuart Sutherland. Was the colleague who died Dave Hardacre?
It was, yes.
For people all over the world, Great Aycliffe Town Council has recently lost two Labour councillors, immensely liked within the community, and a body blow, Brian Hall and Dave Hardacre. Brian's death was not a surprise, but Dave took us all by surprise, and just absolutely tragic. Thank you very much for sharing that, Stuart. And people know people, don't they? They crop up in the most amazing places and just give you a bit of support. Thank you for that story. And Paul, have you thought of one?
Hey,
A moment of the week.
I've got loads. I'd just like to also say how sad I was about Brian and Dave, particularly Dave. It was a big shock. Lovely man. So really sad to see him pass. But that wasn't my moment of the week. My moment of the week is I was split between two again. I'm not going to do two, but the Pandora Papers has to be the one for me. We're going to do a show about it on Saturday, so I'm not going to go into great detail. It's this this huge thing where I think journalists have done an amazing job of uncovering all these awful criminal acts that people have been doing, and then also these legal things that are totally immoral. And Tony Blair, for example, has been avoiding tax and these things that rich people can do to get away with it, and all these Tory donors have been doing it, and the public reaction has been, and that to me, don't know why, but it excites me, because everyone is ready. Everyone knows they're corrupt. Nobody needs to be surprised by that. Nobody needs that surprise thing. Everyone knows that the people who rule us are corrupt. They're looking for something else. They're looking for an alternative. It just needs to come out. And that's why people are getting into conspiracy theories. And that's why people are getting into... Because a lot of them are turning out to be conspiracy fact, to be honest. People who are talking about conspiracy theories. Turns out a lot of them tend to be right. There is a big conspiracy of the rich to hide their money. We know this. This is factual. This is the Pandora Papers, the Panama Papers. They showed us this. And we've got that. And then we've got this thing with Facebook where they're testifying against, Facebook being this evil thing, this thing that it corrupts democracies, and and this feeling, this undercurrent of understanding that people understand that the people in charge of us are corrupt and wrong, and all we got to do, all the good people have got to do, is get together and start pulling in the same direction. They've got us confused. They've got us doing these really, really bizarre things. They've got us arguing against each other about fringe issues. Okay? I'm not saying those fringe issues aren't important, but what's really important is the power dynamic. And this is where we, as a working class, and as anyone who is not in that top 1%, or probably not even the top 0.1%, we need to come together and get rid of this corrupt society. We need to completely change it. Change is coming. Change is coming. So if you're going to get excited about anything, it might not be coming through Westminster. It might not be coming through the political party system, but change has to come. It absolutely has to. People are ready for it. It's going to happen.
Everybody knows. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. That's how it goes. But there is a Leonard Cohen song about change coming, isn't there? I can't quite put my... Tim will know it. What's the Leonard Cohen song about change coming? Tim will know. If you're on, Tim, let us know. That's very thrilling, Paul. that you could look at
You sound thrilled.
that very depressing fact and find hope in it. Thank you so very much. There we go.
Now it's time for the big story.
And if you didn't already feel that you just want to sort of lie down and hide under the bed, we're going to move now on to our big story, which is the Labour conference. Starmer accuses Tories of being lost in the woods as he rejects the Corbyn era. Let's start off with Stuart, who was there. Tell us all about it, Stuart.
I won't go into the details of everything that's happened. I think most people have kind of kept up with the outcomes, and that's kind of set the tone for a lot of people going forward. Some of the things that I think I needed to highlight was the kind of the feeling in the room. It was quite pendular at times. There was obvious tensions. I don't know if it's like this all the time, but there was a strong trepidation about going into that room and making your voice heard. There was strong issues regarding disability. The organisers had really done a disservice to disabled members. When disabled members would make points of order, even when they were asking hands up for a contribution, they weren't being listened to. I did hear one member of staff when a neurodiverse member had said, "Can we, ask the journalists to stop using flash photography?" A member of staff literally went, "Huh." I mean, it would have been very easy to action that in a quick statement to the journalists, but there was complete unwillingness to move on that. People were completely shut down when they were often making good contributions. Points of order were completely ignored at times. There was strong positive feelings in the room as well. The right to food motions, the LGBT plus motions, the Palestine motions, and the minus pensions motions. Basically, 100% of the room agreed with them. We saw people speaking on the stage, showing a commitment to public ownership of the railways. And at the same time, there were people outside the building giving interviews saying that isn't the case. So we were almost in a bubble there for a long time. And you would leave kind of deflated. But the things that, I took away didn't really come from that room. On the walks home, you would see empty buildings, empty hotel buildings with homeless people sleeping outside. And it was very rare that anybody would stop to say hello, let alone pass on some food, which is, me and Jake did on various occasions just hand out little bits of food parcels because we had the capacity. But I think we were in the majority, the minority there. The majority of people just walked on past. And considering the topics that I wanted to hear in those rooms, they were completely ignored. We had a leadership speech that didn't touch on any of the aspects that were going on outside that building. We wanted strong policies, wrecking ball policies to take away those bricks that would have touched on homelessness, proper equality for everyone, and not just repeating the same old education mantra to get your applause. I came away quite upset at times. I really did. And it wasn't because people weren't in the room making great contributions, but it seemed that the people in charge were intent on planting the seeds to fruitless trees. We need to start planting policies that are going to be fruitful for the people, and we're not seeing that.
Planting seeds for fruitless trees. You're so brilliant at times, Stuart. I think that is somebody ought to put that as the summary for the conference. Thank you so much. Laura, talk to us about the conference for a while. Do you think that they're saying that the left was beaten, that Starmer has stamped his authority? Do you think that the left is dead within the Labour Party?
No, of course it's not. Absolutely not. I've seen the majority of the reports have been sort of saying, oh, it's a victory for the right. also the same people are the ones who were saying we need unity and people shouldn't be attacking the leader. Those people were very, very happy to attack Jeremy Corbyn. So it is completely hypocritical, all the reports that happen in a minute. But Stuart's right in what he says. I watched the conference and I was really lucky. I've been to conference twice, both the times Jeremy Corbyn was our leader. And the policy announcements that happened. I mean, the whole room was just on its feet. You know, there was so much hope, so much passion about these amazing policies. We're like, yes, that's what the people of this country need. It's going to be amazing. I didn't see any of that this time round. I saw a couple of policy announcements that I didn't think you could write home about. I saw a grotesquely self-indulgent speech by the leader that was far too long without any content. He mentioned business 29 times and didn't mention socialism once. I think that says it all. But that's where the media spin is. That's where our leader wants to take us as a party. However, like Stuart said, if you removed yourself from the main building and went to see the fringe events, you know, we've talked on the show before about the World Transformed. It was a completely different atmosphere. These are staunch Labour members who are Labour through and through, but are socialist Labour and believe that that's where Labour belongs and should be. And the events were all really positive. They talked about changes we need to see with, you know, policy in terms of climate change, in terms of policing. So many brilliant ideas coming out of things like the World Transformed and those fringe events. Those people are Labour as well. They might not be in leadership, but even the socialist group of MPs, they did an event as well, and every single one of those speeches was enough to get you up out of your seat and get you sort of, you know, doing your little clackers and going, yes, that's what I want. They're just not at the forefront of the party anymore at the minute, but they're still there. They haven't gone anywhere. And it did give me a sense of hope. I forget which MP it was, but one of them said, if the socialist campaign group had 4 more MPs, just 4 more, they would have the swing vote in the Labour Party. If we can, there's something we can work towards. Let's get some more socialists in. 4 more, that's all we need, and we can start making the change that we really want to make and the Labour Party that we really want to have.
I'm just going to quiz you a bit more, Laura, because it's lovely that you sort of, and I know that there are some fantastic socialists in the Labour Party, and they do say some wonderful things, and that the fringe events were fantastic, and Socialist Think Tank was there and making its mouth go, and isn't that exciting and wonderful? But I think the word fringe is critical for me. That it just seems to me that the Wilsonites have their hand stranglehold on power now. The Starmer liars are all there, and they've got it nailed down, and the majority of the membership are just thinking, oh, for God's sake, shut up. We want all this trouble to go away. Let's just go through and let them have it. And sort of I was talking to somebody on message today, and they were saying, we're going to lose the next election. We're in exile for a time. And do you not think it's years before your vision, which you so adeptly put there, if ever, for socialists in the Labour Party?
I think it could definitely be years. I really do. You know, we were so close, but allegedly, our own party tore that away from us. And it's, you know, we've seen it across the entire political spectrum. It's all about power for power's sake. Unfortunately, the working class and the socialists are always going to be the underdog, but that's why we've got to be scrappy. It's why we've got to keep fighting. I mean, we'd had this conversation like literally a month ago, I'd have been like, I'm so done. I can't do this anymore. It is soul destroying, and it's really difficult, and it's really hard to find any enthusiasm at the minute, but the enthusiasm is there. It's just hidden. They're trying to keep it hidden. They're trying to keep us away from each other, because when we collectivize, we really do make a difference. And I do think grassroots and if we can get socialist members, if we can pull them back into the party to be there for votes that matter, like, you know, City of Durham passed a motion at conference that now members can choose their selected candidate. There's going to be no more of this parachuting in. I mean, that remains to be seen, but it's now written in our rules that you can't parachute people in, and the members get to choose. If that's the case, then the more socialist members we've got, the better to get left-wing, proper socialist MPs in place. Then that's got to be the way forward.
Thank you. I'm just loving some of these comments. Can we just take to, so I'm pinching your job here, Sam? You know, the left isn't dead, it's getting whittled down, but there is a red thread. I love that idea. Not dead at all, says Jake Ratcliffe. There were way more lefties on conference floor than people think. Kat Cray, she was glad she wasn't, she's not a member, but she was absorbed by the fringe. David Ray was heartened by people speaking. Jake Ratcliffe, raising the threshold for leadership will make it almost impossible for a socialist to get on the ballot. I agree with that. Leanne Powell, there were 2 conferences. And I think that's a really clever statement. That's how I felt. Jane Strange, so many people can't wait more years. Maureen James, I don't feel any hope. Tosh, I'm 62. Corbyn was once in a lifetime for me, and I doubt another chance in my life. Tosh, I'm afraid I'm with you on that one. Kat Cray, she agrees about collectivizing. So thank you so much for those comments. Really, really good. Sam, you know, one thing that's coming out of this, do we need to leave Labour and join the Green Party? The Green Party's got 2 new exciting leaders. Is this the way forward for Labour members outraged with the leadership?
No. If you're gonna leave the Labour Party and put your energy into something else, do something in your community, go and support your local food bank, go and volunteer at a care home, you know, or get involved with your union at work if you don't have the time to do that thing. If you're at work all the time, find your union and plough your energy into that. You can't, right? People have this feeling that the Greens are somehow to the left of the Labour Party. That's not true. The Green Party is not a socialist party. The Green Party has its ideas about the future it wants to see. That's not necessarily a socialist future. And fair enough, the Labour Party is not covering itself with glory over this at the moment either, but the Green Party also has a huge transphobia problem, which needs to be sorted out. And anybody who thinks that there might be a better solution than the Labour Party needs to be aware of what they're getting involved with before they just walk blindly into that.
Thank you. Kat Cray is evangelising for being outside the Labour Party. That's very naughty, Kat Cray, especially when Sam's talking about staying in. Finally, Paul Daly, tie it all up for us. What do you think this conference has done to the medium-term future of the Labour Party?
So politics is boring again. Like, you know, like there are no ideas. So like that stereotype of the politician who's only in it for themselves and who lie, that's well back. That's it. So at least we're all on the same page there. Like, most politicians are willing to lie. And it was very funny because like what you've got in the Labour Party, you've got the left of the Labour Party who are absolutely appalled that Keir Starmer made these pledges that he's subsequently broken, and he's done all the stuff about like nationalisation, and he's subsequently proved to have not been telling the truth about that, and like we're appalled by this lying. And then on the right of the party, they've gone, well, I'm quite glad he's lying, really. I'm glad he lied, and that's what you have to do to win power. And it's like, yay, politics again. This is really fun. So I don't think there's any disagreement over whether Keir Starmer was not telling the truth or when he went to be elected. He clearly wasn't telling the truth. He clearly got elected under false pretences to the Labour leadership. Everyone agrees that, right and left. It's just people on the left think that's appalling and people on the right of the Labour Party think that's fair game. Do what you can to get power. That is a bad situation to be in. What were you going to say, John?
I was going to say, don't you think that writing for The Sun was the final F off?
How many finals have we had? You know, we've had thousands of finals. The final straw was kicking Corbyn out of the party. The final straw is this, the final straw is that. Are people all going to leave? No, people are leaving in dribs and drabs out of the Labour Party. I don't know. For me, I think the whole Westminster system is totally and utterly broken. And we need to engage with that. We need to engage with that idea. And we need to be doing things outside of that system in order to change things. Look what UKIP did with one MP ever, and he defected. You know, I don't think, did they ever win a parliamentary seat? UKIP managed to make a tiny fringe issue the most important thing in UK politics for a generation, you know, by focusing on a fringe issue. We can do the same, but focus on something actually important that's going to change people's lives. Westminster is there to stop change. We are there to create change. So, like, you know, Westminster might play a part of that. Getting MPs might play a part of that. But it isn't the only way to create change. And a lot of the time, these shackles within the Labour Party arguing amongst ourselves about who's going to be selected. Like, we've seen a great deal of nastiness. Like, I've had people approach my friends to tell me to step down from running as a Labour MP, and I wasn't even running. You know, like trying to scare me off running a hypothetical future election. And this is someone supposedly left wing. They're trying to, like, a trade union trying to scare me off doing it and what have you. You know, it's a dirty game. It's not very nice. You know, I don't think people should want to be an MP. I think it should be, I don't want to do that. Well, you're going to have to because you're the only one who we trust to do it. Okay, that would be a fair enough thing to do. And it's the same with the leadership and all this stuff. Ambition is a bad thing. We need to be working together to change the entire system. And as I said during our Fringe event with Jeremy Corbyn, he was willing to give his power away. And that scared the living daylights out of everyone in the establishment. He was going to give power to ordinary people. They're the conversations that we need to be having. Ordinary people need to have power over their own lives. That is incredibly important. And you can change a lot of minds by saying that. And then if the MPs are going to have to tell their own little lies and like, of course, yes, I will help change lives by giving power to you, then at least you're changing the conversation and at least you're going to have to change things. And every now and then they have to follow through with one of these lies. So, you know, the political system, entirely broken. We tried to fix it really hard. We failed in many ways, but we've got this massive body of really, really brilliant people. And the people in our movement, especially the young people, are out of this world. They are so good. They are so switched on. They are like 20 years beyond what I ever was at that stage. They are so good. And there's a lot of hope there, but we can't focus narrowly on Westminster. Westminster's boring.
Thank you. Leanne gives you a standing ovation. I think I agree. Thank you very much for bringing it to an end that way. Yeah, let's move on. Thank you. And if you thought that first topic was depressing, just wait till you see what else we've got to talk about today. Laura, is the answer to crimes against women Philip Allot's advice that women need to get streetwise about when they can and can't be arrested by the police? Have you ever heard anything like that? Sort of, I'll sit back and stand back for a little while and we'll let you explode for a short while.
I'm gonna stay calm. I'm gonna stay calm on this one because honestly, it's laughable. He's a police and crime commissioner in North Yorkshire. Philip Allot was talking about the Sarah Everard murder and had basically said Sarah should never have allowed herself to be arrested. She should not have gone with him, whose name I'm bored of saying now, and I don't think he needs any extra airtime. but yeah, basically alluding to the fact that women should know more about the legal process and what you are and aren't allowed to do and what you are and aren't allowed to be arrested for, which honestly, I have to laugh or I will explode because it's absolutely pathetic. I mean, for anyone to say that, let alone a police and crime commissioner, is it's just outrageous. And there's a lot of people now calling for him to resign, saying that he shouldn't be in the job if he holds those views. He's rescinded his statements, he's retracted it all and said, I'm sorry, you shouldn't have said it. He basically said women need to be streetwise. They need to know when they can be arrested and when they can't be arrested. She should never have been arrested and she should never have submitted to that. I mean, first of all, who uses the word submit? I mean, clearly he has issues. It's the whole thing just stinks. And it again shows the lack of ability to understand in our police system that women shouldn't be held responsible for their own safety. They should be allowed to be safe. And this is a conversation, and actually this goes back to something that was going to be my moment of the week as well. So if we're going down this rabbit hole, let's just do it full.
Leave it in there, Laura. Get it in.
It's at every level. Boris Johnson recently in an interview has said that so the headline did read that he said there's no need for misogyny to be treated as a hate crime because it would just it would overload the police. I watched the interview. Those weren't his exact words, but around about that's what he was saying, and that in itself just goes to show the inability to or the ineptitude and the lack of wish to do anything about it. Well, misogyny is far too big of a problem for us to tackle. Let's just not bother with that one. He said if you widen the scope of what you ask police officers to do, you just increase the problems. So don't look out for misogyny because you'll just have more paperwork to do and nobody wants that. I mean, how ridiculous. He's saying there's plenty of statute there already to be able to tackle these crimes. It's just not being done sufficiently. And I think, well, okay, do something about it then. Like he's not. Him and Priti Patel, who has not done anything about it, and the whole government, the whole Tory government over, years. We're not just talking about now. This has been an issue for a long, long time. And Samantha will know the Women's Banner Group were involved in the Make Misogyny a Hate Crime campaign with Stella Creasy, Citizens UK, so many other people. And it was just about, I think there's a misunderstanding as well. You don't make it a criminal offence to be a misogynist. What you do is the police have to add that to their report as an indicator of the reasons for the crime. And that way, when we collect the information, we can see the levels of misogyny that are directed towards crime and the reasons for that and how big of an issue it is. And I guarantee it'd be absolutely massive, but they've decided no, we don't want to do that. We're still pushing for it. It's still going through the courts now. We're still trying, but clearly Boris has said just today that is not something that's on his agenda. The whole system's broken and heavily loaded against women, and with men like this in charge, can you really blame the system for being the way it is?
Thank you. Misogyny is the thin end of the wedge, and the thick end of the wedge is murders, like Sarah Everard. Sort of Philip Allot, women should get streetwise. Sam?
Well, I mean, so what is the outcome there? If I'm aware of my rights as a woman to be arrested or not. So the optimistic outcome is that I challenge a police officer and then get charged with resisting arrest. The non-optimistic outcome is that this person is a criminal, and by giving him a moment to think about what he's doing and challenging what he's doing, I give him just that extra bit of time he needs to break my neck. I don't understand how any of this is supposed to make women feel more safe. Certainly didn't make me feel more safe. And my mind goes to some dark places, but I have never once thought about the reality of a police officer kidnapping me, raping me, putting me in a fridge and setting me on fire, and having those thoughts put into your head, you can't take them out again. All right. So what we need is a proper root and branch investigation into the whole culture at the police force. There's all kinds of stuff come out in the last week. Somebody said somebody gave a statement to a news outlet basically saying, oh yeah, well, yeah, there's loads of lad culture at the police, but I didn't really want to call it out because if I was in an incident with some criminals, my male officer friends might just let me get my head kicked in to teach me a lesson. So I'm a lot more worried about the culture in the police than I was before, to be honest. And I think it's definitely for them to demonstrate. Scotland have announced a thing where the police are going to self-verify themselves on their walkie-talkies. So all you need is a friend with a walkie-talkie to say, don't worry, pet, he's a proper policeman, and then you're fine. None of these things make any sense. None of them make people more safe. No. Stop it.
So, thank you for that. And characteristically energetic answer from our two ladies. Andy Burnham on any questions said, any solution that starts women must misses the point. Absolutely misses the point. Paul, speaking as a man, sort of, what's your take on this?
There's no way to spin this as being good, is there? Like, you know, it's at the very least it's a dereliction of duty. If you think that women need to change their behaviour in order to stop men from doing crimes to them, then you're saying that you can do nothing to stop crime. That's what you're saying. You're saying crime's going to exist no matter what. Women need to change their behaviour to stop themselves going there. So the logical step is then, well, we'll have police no-go zones. We'll have a lawless society. That's what they're basically saying, aren't they? That, well, we accept that society is lawless with regards to rape, and yeah, in many ways that's true, isn't it? Like, you know, there are very few consequences for men who do these appalling crimes, and great, you know, great consequences for the victims. It's an absolutely appalling situation. We need to do something very different. I think we need to understand what the police are for. I think there's a real problem in our society that we all assume that the police are there for our protection, and I'm not sure that that is the case. We had Chantel Lunt on Saturday night telling us what the police behaviour is like behind closed doors, what it's like in the staff rooms, the misogyny that goes on there, and this is everywhere as well. It's very interesting that we're focusing on the Met quite a lot. This isn't just the Met. The Met's like the 8th or 9th most corrupt police force, with about the 8th or 9th most complaints about it. It's a standard police force, let's say. It's nothing special. You know, this is going on around the country, and there is a super complaint going on about the police at the moment, the way they're treating women, and hopefully the truth will out. But it's another one of our institutions that absolutely is not working for us, and anyone knows. You know this, like, you know that. If you're working class, you've been brought up in a pit village or something like that, you know this. People don't trust the police.
Thank you, Paul. Everybody knows. I didn't know I was setting the tone for the end of the evening. Everybody knows. So why isn't something happening? Stuart, briefly, does this statement not implicitly accept that there's a problem with the police when he's telling women that they need to sort of cope with the fact that they're going to be arrested illegally? Doesn't that not implicitly accept that there's a problem with our police? And what do you feel about that?
I think there's some considerable considerable political kind of gymnastics going on, where people are saying, look, they've got the powers they need to protect women. Spend some money and make sure they do it. Make them accountable. If they've not got the powers to protect women, because it'll be too much work, spend the money to make sure that you've got enough police officers to make people safe and make it accountable. What they're doing is refusing to accept that they have some responsibility to make sure the police do their jobs. And they're pushing it all onto women to literally have to struggle for their lives, you know, and flag down a bus if they think that their murderer might, you know, be a policeman undercover or not.
Thank you. Victim blaming. It's always somebody else's fault, isn't it? It's outrageous. Thank you for your contributions. We are running out of time, people. Paul, the next thing was 1 in 20 children. 1 in 20 children are infected with COVID. Infections are running at 35,000 a day. Why are we just ignoring a COVID disaster?
I think that there's a massive misconception about what the vaccine does. I think everyone has this impression, because people have been saying to one another, you must get the vaccine because what will happen is then, you know, that's going to make other people safer. This vaccine was to make the individual safe. This vaccine is to help your immune system fight it. It is not to stop you getting COVID, and it is not to stop you spreading COVID. What they've done is they've kind of used this, tagged on this thing as you have to have the vaccine and therefore you have to have a vaccine passport. And I think that's a control measure. I think that's to keep people under control and to try to introduce things that under other circumstances we wouldn't accept. COVID is running rife throughout our communities. Thanks to the vaccine, fewer people are dying. The death rates are falling as the numbers are going up at the moment. Let's hope that continues. But COVID is with us to stay. It will remain in the population to stay. New Zealand have even accepted this now, that, you know, there is no control in COVID. It's now something that, now we're vaccinated, we do have to live with. Now, I really, really worry about, you know, we've known the entire time in schools that children have had it and have spread it. And I really worry about the messaging that's been around that, like schools were safe, you can go in, you can be a teacher, you can go into schools unvaccinated. That was always the thing, and we've always known that the government were lying to us over this. I just worry that people are now misunderstanding what this is, the vaccinations are meant to eradicate COVID. We're not going to do that. It's in the population. We're now as protected as we'll ever be, and people will continue to have booster shots. But when people are vaccinated, that means they're able to carry a higher viral load without symptoms. That means for the unvaccinated, those people are going to be much more infectious.
Thank you. Laura, I mean, we've talked about COVID so many times. Do you agree with your husband on this one?
I always agree with my husband. That's my resting state, surely. Yeah, the whole COVID thing's really... The problem I've got at the minute is that it's still scary, but people are now becoming accustomed to it. It's kind of I know someone put in the comments that, you know, hundreds of people are still dying every day, but it's we're just okay with that now, because we've kind of got desensitized to it, because it was, you know, scary when we're hearing about it every single day. And now people just want to get on with their lives, so we forget about it. And I do think that is of the government's making. You know, they've done that on purpose so we can go back to work and make them some money. It's just the infections clearly are going up because schools are back. Everybody knows that schools are amazingly good at transmitting these sorts of things. Everybody who has children will have no doubt had cold over the last few weeks since kids have gone back. You know, it hasn't gone away. It's not going to go away. Vaccinations help to minimize how bad it's going to be if you get it. But if you don't get vaccinations, then yes, you are going to be very, very poorly. It's not going anywhere. We're stuck with it, I'm afraid. I think that's just the way it is, you know, like it is with flu. Obviously, man flu is even worse. So
Sam, do you think there's any mileage in bringing back restrictions, or do we just? I mean, what I see is people seem to have just gone back to their normal lives. No, I see very few people wearing masks to go shopping or anything like that. I see very few restrictions. People just sort of say, well, let's just get on there now. And this is going on in the background, and people are just sort of pretending la 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 la, it doesn't exist. I mean, is this the answer, or should we sort of begin to kind of screw things down a bit and try and tighten up?
I mean, this was my concern once they announced that, masks weren't required by law anywhere. But if you want to wear one, you still can. And your social distancing isn't going to be enforced anymore, but it's free choice, which once again means that, if you are lucky enough to work from home and have that type of job, which a lot of people who tend to work in factories and supermarkets don't have that option. We've got choices for people who are well off and no choice for people who are working class and who are working in our most precarious jobs. No choice for the Uber driver, no choice for the Deliveroo driver. So I think that's always a concern. And as Kat says in the comments, when you are asking for restrictions that increase safety, there needs to be funding that goes along with that. There needs to be support that goes along with that. And the government are rolling out of the whole furlough thing and reducing all of the support that they've given people, including the £20 universal credit uplift. And that, so it's like, well, we've decided that's as much as we want to give. And they think they're making a calculated decision there, because the vast majority of people who vote will be getting their third vaccination soon. And those people think the government are doing a fantastic job. But for the people on the tail end, the younger people, or the people who maybe are less likely to vote and work in those precarious jobs, they're kind of getting the blunt end of it. So I am worried about it. I am also playing the game that Laura described. It's like, is it a cold or is it COVID? Every single time any one of the kids sniffs. Or I was really worried about Melody yesterday, actually, but we were testing her temperature regularly and stuff, and it doesn't seem to be COVID, but whatever it is, don't know. And of course, and don't forget now, if one of my children gets COVID, if Melody did have COVID, I would have to send Stevie and Nikki into school. You're not allowed to keep your children off school if one of them or yourself has COVID. That would go down as an unauthorized absence. So that may be one of the reasons for so many kids getting COVID.
Thank you. Last comment of all, Stuart. Has all this just been to protect the NHS rather than to protect us? Has the whole thing just been an exercise to protect the NHS from being overrun rather than to protect us from a killer disease?
No, I'm going to use a turn of phrase that Laura mentioned, a resting state. And I think the government's resting state, when they're talking about schools, when they're talking about kids, is to not give a crap. They don't give a crap about the meeting. They don't give a crap about the inequalities of funding, of class sizes. They say kids, they don't give a crap. They say schools, they don't give a crap. It doesn't matter if it's COVID in schools, they don't give a crap.
Thank you. That's a good Labour Party slogan for next year. And a reason to vote Labour if ever there was one. Sam, never mind the cancer outcomes. This is the interview, just absolutely stunning interview of Johnson with. Did you see that interview, Sam, or have you just read about it?
I did. I saw you sent a clip and I watched it because I'm
tell us about it. And I mean, in it, he made some amazing statements without making any promises at all. I mean, what's your thoughts about that?
So yeah, he was being pulled up about all of the statistics about, inequality in the Northeast, and he thought that somehow it would make it better by saying, never mind about the cancer waiting list, never mind about poor life expectancy in the Northeast. The figure that you really want to look at is wage growth among the most lowest paid in society, right? Which I mean, I think a lot of people do care about cancer treatment and waiting lists. And I certainly care that raising kids in the Northeast means that they are likely to die about 10 years earlier than similar children born in the South. I'm very bothered about that, actually. And it does not make me feel better that the minimum wage is higher. And also he said and the wage growth now is better than it's been over the last 10 years, which is, wow, who's been in charge over the last 10 years, Boris? The last government did quite a good job of wage growth, and we totally messed that one up, but we're fixing it now. This is, an ongoing saga of Johnson managing to totally divorce himself from the last decade of the total mismanagement of the country. But there you go.
Paul, this comes across as a massive example of Tory heartlessness. Do you think this was just a misspeak? And he was saying, he never said that he didn't care about those things, did he? He just said, never mind this, never mind that. And people have jumped on this bandwagon. Are you prepared to forgive him a misspeak? Or do you think that this is just Johnson, who just does, what does Paul Stewart say? Give a crap about the Northeast?
I'd never forgive that big sack of whatever he is. But anyway, no, he's an absolutely dreadful man. However, he's not even really right about this. Like, he's saying wage growth is going up. Wage growth is only going up. Like, it took 10 years to get back to the pre crash levels, and it was about there, and then it dipped off because of COVID, and then it's gone up. In relation to other countries, wage growth's really high at the moment because last year people weren't in work because they were furloughed. So it's an anomaly in the data. So what he'd gone in is he'd done the politician thing. He's getting prepped. Right, what am I going to mention? We fudged the figures on wage growth. Mention that. So he's gone, he's chucked his toys out of the pram, hasn't he? He's like this big baby. And he's like, whenever he's, like, I've done this, like, good piece of homework. Yeah, but that wasn't the piece of homework I asked you to do. That kind of thing. So he's asking him about, like, cancer outcomes, and he's like, never mind about that. I want to talk about this thing that we've fudged. Can we tell you about that? That's what it was. It was just him trying to, like, get the conversation onto what he wanted to do it. But because he's a big blustering idiot, he's managed to come across as never mind cancer, like, really offend everyone who's had cancer. But people know this, as I say, everybody knows, John.
Everybody knows.
He's an absolutely dreadful person. The fact that, like, what worries me is the fact that he's so bad, and yet people don't care because, like, they hate him, but they hate the entire political class with him, and they sort of lump him as one of them, which is...
I don't think they hate him. I think they love him. Stuart,
they do. They hate him.
Sort of, Stuart, he sort of, when they tried to hold him, he said, and we're going to deal with unemployment and bring unemployment down. And when the interviewer tried to pin him down on that, he wouldn't even make a commitment on that either. I mean, he gave an interview in which he basically promised nothing for the Northeast and could say nothing for the Northeast. I mean, was this an interview of total failure?
Boris Johnson has been an abject failure since birth, and it is only through sheer, brilliant luck for the man that he's ended up where he is. Beyond that, everything that comes out of his mouth is worthless. He doesn't think about what he says a great deal. when he says he doesn't care about cancer, it's because he doesn't care about anything. It was just that cancer was on the tip of his tongue. Obviously, he gets told by other people what to say. Even they couldn't scrape together anything solid for the region. I mean, it's an absolutely, it's an empty building of policies for the Northeast. That's what it is. It's like going into a big room and there being nothing there except a note saying, "Oh, we tried."
Thank you. Last question to Laura. Sort of, everybody knows, Laura, everybody knows. How do we move that through to everybody cares? Everybody's trying to do something about it. How do we move everybody knows to everybody is taking action? What have we got to do to sort of shake people into, and I'm taking you have the last minute, but I'm taking most of it talking to it. Just reminds me of those videos you see of tsunamis, and so the tsunamis on the horizon, and it's coming towards them at 200 miles an hour, and they're all stood on the beach saying, "Oh, what about that? Look, isn't that amazing?" They're shouting at them, run for your life, run for your life. And oh, it's very interesting. And they don't run till it's too late. How do we transform knowing into action?
You're going to give me a minute to answer that, how are you, John? First of all, I think Stuart might have minced his words a little bit there. I'm not quite sure what he was getting at. Stuart, do you not like Boris Johnson? Well, I think I don't like swearing, but Boris Johnson's just gaslighty as fuck. He really is. It's ridiculous. Telling us what we should and shouldn't care about and what we do and don't care about, and replacing that with the things he wants to. It's such a politician's trick, and it's such a dirty trick, and he's acting like a small child. And the problem we've got, John, is that people do care and people do want to make a difference and people do want to help. But the majority of people who feel like that have been put in a position where they don't have the means to be able to help. They've got to get up, they've got to go to work, they've got to get their kids to school, they've got to try really, a lot of them work 2 or 3 jobs to get food on the table. There's not a lot of space in people's lives to be able to get political or active in their communities. And we've got to create that space for them by doing things like making political meetings more interesting, more accessible for single mothers who can't come out at 7 o'clock on a Friday night to a bloody working men's club. Things like that will help get people who do genuinely give a shit and really want to help, not just change things for themselves, but change things for the people around them. But there needs to be access to be able to do that. And I'm not saying just going to political meetings is the way to do that. Clearly it isn't, because a lot of political meetings are about real changes and boring crap. But even getting involved in your community groups and things like that, there's just no space, there's no time. And the only way we change that, I guess, to go full circle, is to get the Tories out, get a government who's more understanding of the fact that grassroots activism and working class people are the majority in this country, and actually the voice that matters in this country, because we are the majority and we really need to be heard. And given those people, because there's this fallacy amongst, the elites of Oxbridge or wherever Boris and his cronies went, that working class people are thick. Working class people are some of the most intelligent, clued up people that you'll ever meet. They just don't have the opportunities that rich people do. And if we give them those opportunities, then we have a chance to make this country absolutely fantastic, and the world absolutely fantastic. A lot of them are internationalists. But again, the power rests in Westminster at the minute, and it needs to be taken from that and shared out among the people, however we can do that.
Thank you, Laura. I don't want people, this is going to go down as the gaslighting as fuck episode of Political Unmuted, but I don't want that to take away from what you then went on to say, that what people lack is not care, they lack opportunity. And what we need to do is to provide opportunity, and sort of then the world can change. What a lovely, lovely message to end on. You have been fantastic, people. And just the listeners, just let me congratulate the team for a while. What you've said today has been thrilling. Sort of, it's just put the hairs up on the back of my neck, and I'm disappointed that nobody's mentioned that I've had a haircut today. No, it's too late now. On that note, I'm going to thank the team for their amazing contributions. I'm going to thank the listeners for their amazing comments. We're going to go away now to play No Passaran, No Passaran, you shall not pass, you buggers. And sort of what's going to happen afterwards, we're going to return. Sam's in control, and we're just going to take your comments and chat informally. And I am going to try not to say things like gaslighting as fuck. So I'm just doing that over and over again. So Paul will get sort of very upset when he's trying to edit the podcast. See you in 5 minutes.
I'm leaving it in, John. It just needs. I just have to press a button that says this is an explicit in case people don't like to hear bad language. Yeah, but then everyone thinks it's porn. So it's like, what, do I press explicit button or not? Like, it really isn't that bad. But yeah.
We'll see you in 5 minutes, people. Thank you very much. Say goodbye, team, in case they're going to leave us.
Bye.
Bye.
My name is Jack Atkinson, I'm not afraid, and I live and die by this vow that I've made. The only good fascist's a dead one, they say, and around the rear we are. When I first left all them months ago, I told him I'd come not to kill but to cure. Well, for an ambulance driver my shot's pretty sure, and around the rear we are. There'll be no pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. The fascists have come for our freedom, and we ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no pass around here today. I told my mother, now mother, be strong, for the left way is right and the right way is wrong. And you can stick that on my grave when I'm gone, for I'm a real we are. There'll be no pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. Fascists have come for our freedom, and we ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no pass around here today. Cast may be cast, and the cast may be cast, but you armies of darkness, you best do your worst. 'Cause to win, yeah, well, you gotta get past us first, and around here we are. There'll be no pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. fascists have come for our freedom, and we ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no pass around here, no pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. No pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. No pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. The fascists have come for our freedom, and we ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no pass around here today. Keep the red flag flying here.
Hello, and we are back. In the break, me and Paul have been sharing the bruises that we have got from being like physical and doing exercise, and we both really feel very accomplished now. And for those of you who don't know, and really, I'm sure I probably have mentioned it in the members group. So if you want to hear about my chickens and about my aerial yoga and about Paul's fitness journey, you should join as a member, and you'll probably hear us discussing it. But yes, I've been spinning myself upside down in a hammock for exercise and for fun. It's been very good. Anyway, back to the politics. Again, we have had some amazing, fantastic comments today. Earlier on, Kat mentioned that she'd only just seen the strapline of this being a polite political discussion show, and she just point out being an aggravating force is not a bad thing. Educate, agitate, organize is the word agitate, and it's always important to agitate the right people. I totally agree, Kat. Yes, red thread through the party. Boo, boo, boo. Jake said he doesn't think that the Labour Party is dead at all. There were more lefties on the conference floor than people think. I think that's something that people should really take comfort in, because all of those people have been elected by their CLPs, so they are representative of their CLPs. And while there's a bit to and fro in the media about whether what was agreed at conference is binding, at the end of the day, they're going to need us to put those leaflets through the doors. The Labour Party, doesn't matter how many rich donors we get, we're never going to be as rich as a Conservative Party. And if we decide we're not going to put the leaflets through, they're not going to get put through. Kat says the Labour Party conference left her feeling just fine about not being in the Labour Party. And I've got, sadly, a lot of friends leaving the Labour Party. My friend Colin commented on YouTube to say that he's left the Labour Party. And I think we just need to reassure people that it's the Labour movement is the important thing. The Labour Party is just one part of that huge thing. And, it would be very short-sighted, and I'm sure some Labour politicians do suggest that all of the best things that have been achieved for workers have been achieved through politics, but we know that's not true. We know that the unions and just generally people in their communities working together to make things better all have their part to play.
Could I ask a quick question? Could I ask a quick question? I don't want to take time away from the audience, but I just wanted to know, do we feel like the current direction of the Labour Party is to move away from the Labour movement and to distance itself from the Labour movement, and therefore it's only called Labour in name only, like Labour becomes a brand, not a meaningful word? Is that the current direction? I'm not saying is that what the Labour Party is or is for, but is that the current direction?
That's a good question. Does anybody have any opinions on that?
As a non-elected representative, apart from unless you count me CLP position, which I don't think you do, yes, I think that's absolutely what's happening. I think the Labour Party at the minute, in its current incarnation, not all of it, as I said earlier, there's loads and loads of socialist MPs still clinging on. I do think the leadership is lending itself to a more neoliberal agenda, and it is trying to get rid of members' voices. And that's not what the Labour movement's about. That's not what the trade union movement's about. It's all about bums on seats. It's all about people getting involved. So yeah, I'd agree with that entirely.
At conference,
yeah, go for it, Stuart.
There were strong statements that the party would be, at its core, voter focused, where in the past it has been membership focused. And that was put to us as the avenue, the route we would be taking towards electability. And I don't think that's the right way to go in the slightest. But while the management at the top wish to go that way, it's the thousands of people below them that really set the tone of what we get to do. I think people need to recognise, for all they've got their hands on the steering wheel, so do we at this point.
I think the idea of listening to voters on paper sounds like a really good one, but actually what you're doing there is just crafting whatever narrative you want to achieve, because there's not a chance you're going to be able to listen to every single voter up and down this country and get a good idea of what everybody wants. The way you do that is through your membership, who have spoken to members and people in their community. You don't just suddenly know what every single... And that's like... How arrogant is that to think that you know better, that you know what everybody up and down the country would want anyway, if they want to just go for voters? Not everybody thinks the same. And that's an arrogant point of view to have.
It's always really interesting as well that what voters think turns out to be what they thought anyway. Well, I found these voters who had my opinion. But I think because everyone in politics is trying to influence opinion, what's the point otherwise? What's the point in having a belief and having an ideology if you don't try and make other people think, actually, that's a really good idea? If you just go around like, what do you think's a good idea about this thing? Right, I will say I think that too then. That's not really a very honest way to go about politics. Just have beliefs and go with them. And you listen to people, yeah, but like, you talk to people and you say, what are you upset about? Oh yeah, okay, the reason behind why you're upset, like, we might differ in why you think the reasons are, but actually we agree with the problem that's there, and then you work towards your solution and saying, look, I have a solution here for it, and it is socialism or whatever. That's what you're supposed to do. You're not meant to, like, just ask them what they think and then say you think it.
I think I agree with Paul and Stuart absolutely. That when you ask the vote, when they say we're going to be voter focused, they say we're going to be like Boris Johnson and we're just going to say what people want to hear. And if we just say what people want to hear, then they'll vote for us and we'll get power. And and I can't see any point in that whatsoever. There has to be principles and socialist principles at that, because we believe that that is the best thing for the people of this country. And I can't see any point in anything other. I do get, Sam, tremendously scared when people say, we're representing the working class. And everybody in this meeting must sort of think, what right have I got to speak for the working class? And I think that we need to be very careful to be aware that the Labour Party is so much more than its MPs. and so much more even than its membership. It's got its affiliates, and it's got its youth movement and its various the women's movement and things like that. We must be careful that we speak for the working class, not just for ourselves and our own principles. But nevertheless, I can't be doing with this thing whereby we just become this great puddingy, lying, Johnson-esque mass of people who dress in a suit and look respectable and think that that's the way to power. Pray God that we don't win an election on those terms. And there was a joke on the news quiz this week, and is it Matt Ford? Somebody Ford, F-O-R-D-E, sort of said the big problem with the Labour Party, it's got a whole load of people who don't want to win an election in it. Because he meant you and me, the left, that sort of we don't want to win an election. And sort of there's a truth in that. I don't want to win an election if it means just putting in a whole load of proto-Tories. That's not why I joined the Labour Party. I joined the Labour Party to get rid of those people. And it is this difficult thing that Paul's absolutely touched on, this fine line between principles and popularity, and it lies not in succumbing to the will of the people and moving right till we catch them up. It lies in helping people to see that austerity is a lie, that the rich are stealing from us, and all those things that everybody knows, and getting them to act on that.
Interesting.
And our eagle-eyed viewers have noticed that Penny has made an appearance on the show.
Yeah, Penny!
Very happy. Sorry, Paul, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's interesting you mentioned affiliates. Like, I'm on the national executive of the Socialist Educational Association, one of Labour's affiliates. And you'd kind of think that you would be involved in talking about education policy. Now, our position as a Socialist Educational Association is to get rid of academies. Like, we're anti-academy. And there was none of that. There's just none of that. And you would think like the education affiliate would inform, like, okay, you come to us and say what you think. That'll be a sensible way to work, I would say, to ask your affiliates who are either very interested, anyone can join, or in a lot of cases experts in the field. What do you think? Okay, let's have regular meetings, and they do a really good job, and they do sometimes meet with Kate Green, etc. And they have influenced opinion, and they are a brilliant affiliate. Otherwise, I wouldn't want to be involved with them. But ask us, or the Socialist Health Association, or all the affiliates should be involved in the discussion. They shouldn't just be like, oh, you're affiliates, so every few years you get a choice you get to sit on some sort of thing to decide who wants to be an MP. Sounds a bit rubbish, really, that you've got a body there that's really ready-made to find these things out for you.
Is Penny farting?
You just burped.
Was it a burp?
Right in the microphone. Well done, Penny. That's going to sound class on the podcast.
I didn't think it deserved that, Paul. I thought it was a very sensible statement.
Well,
agree with Penny on this one.
What is interesting in terms of the language that's being used is a shift to saying working people. And I find that particularly difficult, being that my height of Labour activism, I wasn't a working person. I was a carer, an unpaid carer for disabled children, and doing a lot of volunteering in my community, but still wasn't working. And I think there's a lot of people out there who can't work through no fault of their own, and we really need to make sure that we're not demonizing them, and we're not climbing to power on the back of the most vulnerable in our society. If you haven't had a chance to watch it yet, I strongly recommend you look up the video that's been going around of a gentleman with cerebral palsy pulling up Jacob Rees-Mogg in the street. Now, I'm a politician, and I know it's very difficult to be challenged directly like that. But the way that he talks to that man is absolutely disgraceful. And sometimes you've just got to shut up and listen. But he did not shut up and listen. He kept talking, and he kept telling this man who with lived experience of training to be a youth worker, and then having all the youth work jobs in the country basically abolished when the government withdrew the funding. Oh no, you're wrong. That's not what we did. Well, it was what you did actually, Jacob. And now you're making people like that who could work if the work was available, beg for scraps off the table and prove that they're disabled. And he says, I can't believe I've got to prove that I've got cerebral palsy. And a lot of us will know and have friends who have got long-term, chronic, life-limiting and permanent conditions who have to go and prove that they have those conditions. Incurable conditions, you've got to go and prove that you've still got them every few years because, you might be a medical miracle and you might have managed to cure yourself. The way that disabled people are treated in this society is absolutely disgraceful. And if the Labour Party isn't for them, as well as people who are on minimum wage jobs, then very much what is it here for? Thank you very much, Tim, for dropping the link to that. I will call it an interview with Jacob Rees-Mogg in the comments. Please do watch it if you haven't already, because you can only understand people's lived experience from listening to them. And if I was Jacob Rees-Mogg, I'd be very interested in listening to that man, and I would actually have asked him to contact me to arrange a time and place where we could sit down and talk properly rather than telling him that his experience was incorrect.
I did think, I wonder how
Stuart.
Jeremy Corbyn would have dealt with that as well, because I saw him hugging people who had lived experiences. He was a really warm person, and warmth that you can't fake,
Yeah.
Shame.
Do you have anything to say on my little rant there,
Changing the mood. I know Quantum Skyline claiming that it wasn't Penny, it was Laura. That happens a lot. Quantum Skyline. Sort of the dog gets blamed. You mark my words.
Poor Penny. #believe Penny. Oh, by the way, I said we should have Johnson is Gaslighty as fuck on a t-shirt. We could actually do that now if you're moving to print on demand. We can have ridiculously niche t-shirt slogans.
So you've said it as well now.
Oh no, I've said it as well. We could have a montage. Jake says Jacob Rees-Mogg is probably not aware of the Tories' policy on disabilities because he was probably too busy drowning puppies to care. And to be fair, you can't expect a haunted pencil to have that much interest in anything.
A haunted pencil. Oh my god, that's my new favorite thing ever. A haunted pencil.
Have you seen him as a boy? Have you seen that video of him as a little boy? He's got a little monocle on and a top hat, and he's like, "Well, I actually like the Thatcherite policies," because you're like, he's horrible. Have a look. It's honestly, it's like when people were saying, "Oh, that Jacob Rees-Mogg, he gets it. He's a man of the people," and he's like, "Hello," and it's just ludicrous. How he ever came across as a man of the people is unknown.
Justin
the random Jacob Rees-Mogg abuse, which is now coming up on the
He looks like Walter from the Beatles.
None of it is actually very factual or all a bit childish, really. But he's an easy target, isn't he?
He is.
What gets me is that Jacob Rees-Mogg has no interest in educating himself regarding real world issues for people. But then you get Tory MPs who are blue collar Tories, who were working class people, and you get the same responses out of them. You speak to people, and it's like the kids need food, and they're like, well, it's not really worth my effort bringing it up in Parliament. It's too much effort for me to send a letter. But you say, look, people need dignity and support. That removing money will force people into survival prostitution. And what they'll say is, well, we need to get people back to work. Yet people who, they have this kind of, well, what can you do attitude? Especially with like work and benefits, disabled people are asked, what's stopping you from, getting to the top of the stairs? And it's like, well, I've got no legs. But could you get to the top of the stairs? He's like, if I really had to, I could drag myself up the banister. I went, right, you can get upstairs, no issue. You know what I mean? There's just this complete disregard of any, real world situation at all. It's horrifying, and it literally burns my soul to think that these people do not give a second thought when somebody, is literally in pain. We'll come to them. They're in dire situations. We'll come to them. And they're like, well, I know better. It's so miserable.
What strikes me, Stuart, was that when Howell became an MP, how the quality of his responses changed so very, very radically. And I think that Tory Central Office or Tory MP Advice Office or wherever it is, they give some, I think they just churn out. I think they're on the ball about what people are saying and what they're going to say. And the MPs are given the responses. And I think they just stop thinking for themselves and start churning out the official response. And you can see official response all over so much of what Paul Howell says when challenged. And sort of you talk about blue collar Tories who've lost their roots. I think it's that they just yield to the party line, and they churn it out because they know this turns the heads of the electorate. And whereas the Labour Party, we all squabble about with each other about what's the right way to answer this question. But that's the people being real. There are no real answers to this, and sort of it's the plastic mass-produced nature of these people's statements, which I think consciously and intentionally missed the point and make some other damn point, which wins votes.
They do have a loose view of what blue collar is. Isn't Howell considered a blue collar Tory?
I think
working down the accountancy mine.
Member of that group, yes. I'm sort of the landlord class, the blue collar landlord.
The landlord class.
Some of the people who pay me have worked in a factory. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Blue collar.
But what you're saying about central, sort of the central party telling them what to do. I'm part of a. Oh, by the way, Stuart, Dan is part of your fan club. He's saying he's loving you over on YouTube. I'm part of a campaign with the TUC about getting key workers at a pay rise, and they're trying to get certain MPs to meet with them. but they have noticed, because they're working across a wide variety of Conservative MPs, they're noticing that a lot of these Conservative MPs aren't advertising surgeries. That's the type of thing you would expect an MP to do. But they're not advertising surgeries, and they are trying to put people off having even a Zoom surgery as much as possible. And it's all about this sort of pushing accountability down the road and being able to fob people off with stock answers to things. And there's a letter in the Northern Echo today from a man saying basically he's had a reply from Deanna Davison saying that she's not going to reply to any more of his letters. I've talked about policy enough with you. It's not a good use of my time anymore. And I mean, I think that's appalling. That's an appalling thing for an MP to say to a constituent. But they're going to get away with it. They're going to get away with it because so few people go to surgeries and engage in that direct way. You know, people have a real blind spot for politics until it directly affects them. And then it's suddenly, what are you going to do about it? What have you been doing? And I haven't been watching what you've been doing for the last 3 years on the subject. I'm going to get a lot of that over the next few weeks, because people who weren't directly affected or did not believe or did not understand the severity of a secondary school closing in our town won't have seen all the work I've been doing for the last 3 years. And now that it's hitting the crunch time, it's going to be, and what are you doing? Where have you been? How come I've never heard of this before? It'll be my fault. But there we go. That's politics. Go on then, John.
Can I do my moment of the week?
Yeah, go for it.
Because it directly relates to what you were saying about you don't notice something until it directly affects you. Barbara got a parking ticket last week. We stopped outside. We've challenged it, but I don't think we'll win. We stopped outside a fish and chip shop, and as you know, Barbara has a blue badge, and she put a blue badge, very conspicuous, parked in the disabled parking bay, and she put a blue badge very conspicuously on the dashboard, and was able to walk to the car. And what they got her on was that she should have put the blue time card there as well. And it's a rule that if there's a sign up saying it's time limited, this spot is time limited, a disabled person has to put the blue time clock card next to it showing what time they arrived. And so bank to rights, that's the rule. And she didn't display the blue card. She just displayed the. But way down the road, mile after mile of time-limited parking, abled people were parking. They didn't have to put a blue card saying what time they arrived. They're sort of there. The warden walks down and he notices if they're there. Then he comes back an hour later and sees if they're still there. And if they're still there, he gives them a ticket. With able people, it's the warden's responsibility to realise what time they arrived and whether they've outstayed their time-limited time. But with disabled people, they've got to put a card on or they get fined for not displaying the card. I think that's a direct discrimination against disabled people. A direct discrimination. I mean, that's what the word discrimination means. They're being treated differently to ordinarily abled people. I think it's an absolute disgrace. And Barbara's listening to this. And so I don't know whether she'll be right pleased that I've outed her on international podcast as a criminal. But the fact is of the matter is that it's an example of discrimination. And you're right. People don't start getting cross about these things until it happens to them. My moment of the week.
It's a sad one. You've had a sad day today, John.
So we've had a very sad day today, actually, Paul, for a number of reasons. But life goes on, and you plough on through them. It did start off with Leonard Cohen, I have to say, but it got worse as it went on. So I have been a little bit. Please forgive me, everybody. I have been slightly quieter and less jolly than I normally am. But these days are there to be overcome. Maybe the answer is, Paul, what do they say? Don't, what is it that's saying? Don't something organise or don't.
They anyway. Said don't leave organised, but then I rephrased that as don't leave, get your head kicked in. Because there seemed to be like nothing, like it didn't matter how much you got organised, they just kicked your head in. And it was like, yay, this is a great strategy. Let's just lose and get kicked out of the Labour Party, like, and have loads of people kicked out, or loads of people feeling like they're going to get suspended, or loads of people feeling really depressed. So I'm not really for that. Like, Don't Leave Organised started off and it was noble in purpose, but in practice, very little happened. I think you either do something or you don't, and it seemed to be a holding pattern where you're just like, just wait. We've got something planned. Oh, you don't.
I've been absolutely agonising about whether I can stay in the Labour Party for a little while. And there are places and times in your life where people say to you, stand there. I'll tell you what would be a good idea. Here's an opportunity. Just stand there with your legs apart for a while. Just stand there with your legs wide apart for a while. And here's a real opportunity to you. And then they just kick you very, very hard. And they trick you into doing this time after time after time after time. And I think writing for The Sun was a real sort of kick you in the goodies moment. And, stand there, deliver all these leaflets. Here you are. Right, we're going to totally ignore what you have to say. We're going to despise you. We're going to get cross because you're not making enough effort. And we're being treated with such disdain, and I've found it very, very depressing and very, very hard to just put up with it. To continually have your head kicked in time after time after time, to be treated with such hatred by your own side, for God's sake, and. It's just been so good on the show to see the four of you just so resilient. Resilience, I think, has to be the word of the moment. Thank you so much for your inspiration, your inspiring words.
Pat is, of course, always full of wisdom. She says, we have to work together, though, and I am more than proud to working with those of you inside the machinery that I respect. It's the machinery that I can't stand. She also says it's fine to leave the Labour Party. She's fine. It's fine if that's what you want. If that's what you want to do. And Mark says just stay and don't deliver the leaflets if you don't want to. There's a wide variety of opinions. There are some people.
Can I just point out to Dan, TJ Lewis, that standing with the legs, I don't often stand with my legs apart. It was a metaphorical image. Not a description of a physical position I take often.
I'm really glad that we've made
we need Dan on
night.
Sometime. We need Dan on sometime. Do you know Dan from?
No.
So on The World Transformed, Dan was like the main presenter and organised a lot of the stuff and was great. And Dan needs to come on. He's great. He's been on Socialist Night Live a couple of times. So.
Yeah. Tim brings up the issue that I've been burning to bring up, the fact that, again, my MP, Deanna Davison, has had some Tory scum badges printed and she's been handing them out at the Pizza Zone, apparently, at the Tory Party conference. I also have to correct myself because apparently she does have some surgeries advertised on her website. So I will see if I can get anybody to go to them. But he also points out that she spends a lot more time regularly going to the presenting at GB News, which she does every week, which is another thing. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. Right, I totally get why you would take something negative like Tory scum and try and make it no positive, especially it's Deanna Davison's playbook. She loves to amplify things that that are negative about her because she likes this narrative that people are always getting at her, but she's really strong and she's not going to let it get her down because she's like superhuman. But she will also campaign on mental health support. But she's like superhuman resilient, so she doesn't need that. She just needs to continue doxing people on Twitter and getting a Twitter following to pounce on them like flying monkeys, and everything will be fine. But it just got me thinking, right, if somebody called me scum, that would bother me. And I would be wondering and searching my soul for why they might say that about me. And I would not be proud of it. And I think, sometimes some humility is needed in public life. And this is one of the times that if I was going to advise Deanna, which I'm not going to be honest, she can make her own mess and lie in it. But if I was going to advise Deanna, that's what I would say. Sometimes humility doesn't go amiss. And by the way, just according to some comments there by Kat, I certainly did not say Tories are scum. I would never say Tories are scum. And I'm just saying that somebody else said that Tories are scum.
Cat would.
Can we take Chris Hood's question, which strikes me being really actually a very sensible and interesting question to discuss?
Okay, do you want to read it out?
Serious question. It's despairing. No more comments, please, while I read it out. If there is no way of being able to get behind the current Labour Party, there being no solution or resolution of the situation you're all feeling in with the current leadership and direction, if you had to, what would your next opinion to make a difference? New party, new approach, just keep going. I thought that was an interesting question.
Go on then, Stuart.
I mean, I wouldn't support a Tory coalition, considering the agenda they have.
Good point, well made.
Am I right to come in? I would say that we need to explore a load of different avenues. As I said earlier on in the show, Westminster is not like, and when I say Westminster, I mean parliamentary elections. I mean the system where people go to Westminster to vote and pretend that their job is something other than voting. So that system really isn't going to necessarily change things. So do things outside of that system. If the two-party system is broken, you're not going to really change it. You kind of have to keep your toe in a little bit, I think. You've got to kind of try and be interested in that, but that can't be the reason you do everything. So there can't be, like, your local Labour Party can't be the reason that you do everything. Before we used to do that and we were like, everything has to be to do with the Labour Party because we believed in the whole process and we believed in everything we're doing and we felt empowered as a local party. So everything we did had to come through the party. Now it's not going to be like that because anything you do in the party is actually quite slow and it's quite ground down and it doesn't give you any flexibility to do things. So I would say just do things, get together with people in your community and do things. And then at some stage in the future, if you can feed into the parliamentary system, then do that. That's what I would say is probably the best approach at the moment. That doesn't say stay, that doesn't say leave, that says do whatever you want to try and actually make a difference now and don't have any illusions about what the current system of the Labour Party can actually do. That is not to say there aren't some amazing things going on like Preston Labour Party and Jamie Driscoll, one of the Metro mayors. They are doing genuinely really, really good things. So all is not lost in the Labour Party. There are still really good people within it. but don't expect that same flexibility and that same passion and that same hope to be coming from the Labour leadership, because, to be honest, he's not honest, and he's not going to inspire anyone. So, you've got to do other things, but leaders are temporary.
Sure. Anybody else got an answer? No?
I think the answer is to hang in there, to tell you the truth. But what Paul said was really wise, that I don't think I can sit there now and say that the Labour Party is my great hope. Because if they were to get elected, I don't know whether they'd make the changes and the difference. And people always talk about Blair and Brown, but sort of in that 1997 Labour administration was absolutely radical and brought in some fantastic things. The people who now sort of sell themselves as the Brown-Blair heritage, they want to be like Brown and Blair were at the end of the game, when they were tired and neoliberal, and they'd sold out so many of those initial principles to be part of the establishment. And sort of, I just, if that was to come in, I just couldn't buy into that as the answer. I think that the answer is therefore to pursue good in every way possible. But what would Paul say? Keep your toe in. Keep your toe in. Sort of wise answer. Thank you, Paul, for those words.
Yeah, I just couldn't. I mean, there isn't another party, and none of the current political parties that I could switch to align with my beliefs. And if there was a new political party, like, we don't have time. We don't have time for a new political party. We don't have. But when you got Northern Independence Party were posturing themselves as like the new socialist hope, right? And the things that they were suggesting they wanted to secure for a new socialist Northumbria, it was stuff that the Scottish government haven't been able to secure in sort of 40 years of them trying and initiating that kind of dialogue within their society. So, but at the same time, I totally appreciate what Paul said earlier about UKIP and how they, as a very small niche party, managed to push the dialogue, push the Overton window and is very much what they started leads us to where we are now with this extreme right-wing government that we have. So it is complicated. But I certainly, I don't see myself joining another party or becoming an independent in a likely future, because and I also have to think about the fact that the people like Dennis Skinner, people like Jeremy Corbyn, people like John McDonnell stayed in the party for years and years and years and years and years and were sidelined and sat on the back bench. And, there were times that the Socialist Campaign group of Labour MPs was literally like 3 people. And, they sat through things. And if they hadn't done that, then we wouldn't have had the hope that was brought to us by Jeremy Corbyn and the it's better to have loved and lost. We've seen what can be achieved, and I have a firm hope that we can get there again. But it might be when I'm as old as John, and I might have to wait that long. But I want to be there for when it happens.
Sam, you being 21, I'll be long dead, something at that point, right? When you're 69.
And yeah, and what John said about New Labour when they came in, let's not forget they brought in the minimum wage. That, that's as radical as the national care system might seem to some people now, which, actually not that crazily radical, but some people will have said it was. They said there will be massive job losses if you force people to pay people a minimum wage, which is exactly what they say now when we say we want £15 an hour. It's exactly the same arguments rehashed 30 years later, so pretty depressing.
Did you see what Dan said? He made a really, really good point. He said, don't forget there's no socialism without dancing. There is that like massive aspect that we need to do, because we get like so bogged down in the boring meetings that we have, and it's so depressing. It sucks the soul out of me. And I've sat there like chairing meetings where people are being really pedantic about something, or like being really aggressive and horrible about me personally or something like that, and it sucks your soul out here. Like, just do some fun stuff. Like, you can really, really enjoy stuff. The world transformed when we were down there. That was such fun. We had a great time, and we did do some actual dancing there. But like metaphorically, you've got to do some dancing, because what's the point in creating a society where we can all be happy if we aren't going to be a bit joyful while we're doing it? Like, I think we need to bring back quite a lot of the joy and things like the Miners' Gala does that, and all sorts of other things. So bringing the fun into it as well, that's what we need to do in the meantime. And let the right wing do petty things. Let Luke Akehurst go absolutely bright red and patter on about like whatever he patters on about. And be really aggressive and horrible and full of hatred, and we'll dance around the place, and everyone will say, who do I want to be like? Do I want to be that red fella over there, or do I want to be like them who are having fun? And most people, the fun people will come to us, and the awful people will go to him.
Yeah. And you heard it here first, folks. We are the fun people. We are the cool kids. You want to be in our club. And you can be in our club. And it's free to join.
Oh, well done.
Beautiful.
Indeed, it's also free to subscribe to all of the content on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, if you're a twitchy person. And or maybe it's coming up to Halloween. Maybe you're a twitchy witch. And please do support us on the social media. And if you do that, maybe Paul will let me design some T-shirts that say really inappropriate things that you can buy.
There is no let. Just do it. Just do it.
Okay.
That's what we're about in social thing. Just do stuff. That's fine. Do it. You're a member. Do it.
I am a member, yeah. Cabinet is next week, Tim, thank goodness, because I've no chance of reading any 50-page report by tomorrow. So I've got a week to prepare for the Cabinet meeting, but thank you very much, Tim. Okay. So, and also, don't forget, we're on the podcast, wherever you get podcasts. Just search for Socialist Think Tank, and there is literally like more content there than you can probably consume in a reasonable lifetime, because there's like so much stuff going up all the time, and there's already about 6 years of content for you to listen to already. So we're just going to keep you in content forever. And if you don't mind listening to us prattle on, then we will let you do that. What shows have you got coming up, Paul?
We have got on. We don't have any Origins this week because as Dan was saying, we got a little bit poorly after the world transformed and everything got a bit tired. So we had to postpone a couple, so we don't have any Origins. But on Saturday we've got Harry Cross coming on, who's going to explain to us what the Pandora Papers mean. I think that's an incredibly important thing, because at the beginning of this episode I said about how no one seems to care about this thing and everyone just seems to accept the nastiness, but I think we need to delve into exactly what this means, what's going on, and how London is the capital of corruption. This is what the Pandora Papers are saying. The city of London, it's not just these tax havens, it's not just offshoring. Offshoring is happening on a grand scale, but within, like, offshoring just means where you say your money is, not where it actually is. So it's in the city of London. We are living in a corrupt country. And I think that's massively important, and we need to take some control of that back. And if people are talking about Brexit taking back control and things like that, what better way to take back control than to get rid of massive amounts of dirty money from our capital city? So that's Saturday. That's Socialist Night Live on Saturday.
Absolutely. This is public interest programming right here. You won't get that on the BBC. Well, they do have a program about the Panama, but the papers, not the Panama Papers,
Pandora Papers, yeah, because they're saying it's opening up a Pandora's box.
Yeah, they do, but ours is going to be better. Right then, we're going to say goodbye and see you next week. Okay then, bye.